Hey friends, it's Andy. Welcome to our new show, Accelerate Expresso. Look, I know you're busy, and it's hard to keep up with all 6 of the great episodes we publish each week. So, with this show, Accelerate Expresso, we're going to deliver highlights from each episode from the previous week. And in the process, give you short, delicious shots of insight from a show you might have missed, and to help amp you up for the coming week. Now, before we jump into it, please remember to visit iTunes or Google Play or wherever you listen to subscribe to this podcast. And while you're there, leave a review, please, for Accelerate. We need your feedback to ensure that we keep delivering the high levels of value you expect. Okay, let's Expresso. First up this week, from episode 464, is Lee Caraher. Lee is the CEO of Double Forte, which is a digital agency based in San Francisco. She's a keynote speaker and a previous guest on Accelerate, where we spoke about her book, Millennials in Management, The Essential Guide to Making It Work at Work. Now, she's back, and we're talking about her new book, The Boomerang Principle, Inspire Lifetime Loyalty from Your Employees. So listeners, we had a great talk about the Boomerang Principle and why companies that encourage and allow employees to return have a strategic advantage over those who don't.
I think there's 2 things on that, the boomers thing. One is boomers, I think, many people got caught by 2 or 3 downturns, depending on where you are in the country, right? Mm-hmm. And so particularly the people in 2008, 2009, who may have been on the older edge of being boomers, who lost their jobs before they wanted to and then couldn't find them again. And it took a long time for them to get rehired. They're just, a lot of them, and I've talked to lots of them, are just trying to hang on to those jobs, right? They don't want to get priced out. They don't want to be old. There's some statistic in Silicon Valley that says there are more men getting plastic surgery today than there are women. There's just trying to stay young.
Because they're trying to stay young enough to be employable.
Right, to be relevant, to be seemingly relevant, right? And so these people are trying to hang on to their jobs at the same time as they see these younger employees like, I'm not getting what I want here, I'm off, right? So it feels twofold. One is they grew up thinking their parents were in jobs forever, and then the economy totally changed in the 80s and the 90s when publicly traded companies started shaving people for profit that they didn't really need to for the street, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. And lots of people got laid off. This changed the entire dynamic in the contract. But the myth of the golden watch, the myth of the, retirement party, the myth of those things, still prevails, even though they're really not real. They haven't been real for over 20 years. So we're sort of living with this ideal that is no longer true. And I think some boomers that I speak with are sort of living in the disappointment of where they are versus where they had planned. And then they see these particularly younger people, under 35, 36-year-olds who look like they're not loyal, meaning they don't stay around. They don't do their time. When, of course, if they were their children, they would say, don't leave, if you're not getting what you want, if you don't have mm-hmm. work-life balance, if the company is not going anywhere, you got to get out of there so you don't look stale, right? So it is definitely a push me, pull me on that for sure.
On Tuesday, in episode 465, I spoke with William Wickey. William's the senior manager of content and media strategy at Lead Genius and one of the authors of an ebook titled 2017 Trends and Tech Guide for B2B Sales and Marketing. So not surprisingly, we had a good talk about some of the key trends they identified in that ebook that will affect you in B2B sales. Check it out.
Some of the things that people should consider are, I would say, the first 2 things when it's regarding the SDR function and growing that and adding scale to the sales process. Outbound email solutions that allow for heavy personalization and easy tracking is something that I would consider. This would include companies out there like Outreach.io, Yesware, PersistIQ, simple email tools that people usually fall on one side or the other of. They've either over familiar with that type of area and they think, well, why can't I just do everything from Gmail? Why can't I do everything from my marketing email? And I come from the marketing side of things. So I have marketers say to me all the time, like, well, why can't I just do outbound email with HubSpot or Marketo or a MailChimp, et cetera? And then on the sales side, it's like, well, why can't I just send emails from Gmail? Why can't all my reps just, maintain their own communications there and log activity in Salesforce? The tools that we highlight in this area are things that you can use to coordinate messaging at scale and make sure that insights from particular reps are not getting lost in the shuffle of data. You're actually able to iterate on what's working, learn, and start from a consistent process. So what that looks like actually in practice is a single template used for your 15 or 50 reps. Work that 8 email sequence, set up, timed or trigger-based email sequences that are intended to, gauge a prospect's interest, get a positive reply, convert them into a qualified lead, and do all that automatically, just putting the positive replies or the replies in the hands of the rep, making their time more efficient rather than that tit for tat back and forth all day on email. That can be a big time saver for those guys. The other thing that I would suggest for sales teams considering an approach like that is your data strategy. How are you acquiring and maintaining quality contact and account data? How are you getting data points that allow for personalization at scale? One thing that you hear a lot about personalization, and I guess I should qualify that personalization in an outbound email function isn't just purely about merge fields in an email. It is about that. You can go look at.
Well, as the recipient of many of them, it seems like for 99% of the companies, that's exactly what they're doing.
They're definitely doing that. You can go look up, all sorts of different blog posts about personalization in your subject line, increasing open rates, et cetera. And that's true to a certain degree. But the real personalization element that quality data and having the right data allows you to do is segmenting those email sends into targeted blasts that are, a template that actually has compelling messaging structured around a specific type of individual within your system. That's an example of, the type of personalization you can get with some of the data providers out there today. Lead Genius does this to a certain degree. Providing high quality data is definitely something that we do. But depending on your process, there might be better solutions out there for you that are just pure data plays. Depends on whether scale is most important to you. Unique data points offer insights into your customers specifically. For some people, it doesn't. And making sure that you have a technology in place to actually get the most out of that.
Next up in episode 466, Sharon Drew Morgan. Sharon Drew is the creator of Buying Facilitation, a keynote speaker and author of multiple best-selling books, including one titled Buying Facilitation. And in our conversation, we had a great talk about buying facilitation because Sharon Drew believes that you can't sell to buyers until they know how to buy, and they really need help from you as the seller to help them learn how to do that.
So let's be a little bit careful because there's the client, the buyer has to figure this out. And a salesperson from the outside whose job it is to sell their solutions not only do they not know how you're going to figure it out or the buyer's going to figure it out, but that's not their job. Their job is to find somebody who's going to buy. So you've got one group, i.e. the buying decision team group, who's got to go through the steps to figure out how to resolve their issue and get to excellence, because they don't want to buy anything. They just want to have excellence. Right? They're not setting out to buy anything. And
they don't care what the solution is, right? Just as long as they're excellent, right?
Just so long as they're excellent. And the salesperson now sees somebody with a need. One of the big problems is that the sales model thinks a prospect is somebody who should buy. I think a prospect is somebody who will buy and who can buy, which makes it a very different person. Because just because you see there's a need doesn't mean they think there's a need or they're willing to act on it. Okay?
Sure.
So once the buying decision team is brought together and they decide together what excellence would look like, and then they try to fix it themselves, because all systems first try to fix the problem themselves, always. And when they can't, then they say, oh, crap, do we really have to bring in something new? And then you've got the sales and the marketing team who would have to share budget, and they're not talking to each other. Then you've got the tech guys who doesn't want to make any more changes because he's scheduled out for 3 years and he's not going to do anything until he's finished. And they don't know if they're going to bring in another group to help him because their outsourcing group has just gone belly up, and do they have to pick another outsourcing group? And then this one's fighting with this one, and all of that has to be resolved before anybody can buy. Okay, the last thing they want to do. So nobody is helping them go through that. And you know what? I was an entrepreneur. It's really confusing. When do you bring in your investors? When do you bring in your current vendors? Or who do you talk to? Who do you not talk to? I was married to my tech guy. I hired him to take care of my tech team, and we decided to go through a divorce in the middle of my third year as an entrepreneur. We had to work around, everyone had to work around our issues while we were working together, and we had to deal. There's always something going on, and until they figure it out, they can't buy. So you've got them going, and nobody's helping them. I've coded all the steps, and I can teach salespeople how to teach the buyer how to go through that. The switch is that the salespeople can't think about selling first.
In episode 467, I spoke with Michael FitzGerald. He's the founder and CEO of One Page CRM. In our conversation, we discussed how to use your CRM system, not just to monitor deals, but to actually get things done, things you need to get done as a salesperson to move deals forward and to close them.
I mean, like when you're dealing with if you've got somebody who's dealing with, say, lots of leads and they have to qualify them and then they're trying to nurture some other prospects, you can get bogged down. And I mean, like if you're kind of, faced and you look in your database and you've kind of say, okay, I better research this prospect before I reach out to them or whatever I need to do. That is a time waste as well. I mean, like, there's lots of productivity principles where you would say you only handle a piece of information once and you make a decision. You have to, don't read it and leave it down without taking on an action. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've built in as well. I mean, like, so when you complete the task, we say to you, what is that next action? Because you've got the information fresh in your mind to be able to make that decision better. And I would say that, you're dealing with people like, if that person was maybe angry in some way, you are in the best position now to make the right decision about what is the next step. Or if they were, you're contacting them too much. And the last thing you want is one of your colleagues just picking up, from where you left off and being insensitive about it. You can make all the decisions way better right at the time of the last physical interaction. So that's what we believe anyway.
On Frontline Friday this week, with my very regular and special guest, Bridget Gleason, that was episode 468, we talked about sales management. In particular, how to use questions to coach and mentor the members of your sales team. And also, really importantly, how to determine how you as a manager can best add value to your reps.
Well, and I think it says something also that even though you were prescriptive, that she had the courage and confidence to follow her own instinct and gut. And I look for that also. Mm-hmm. That because sometimes I may make a stronger suggestion. I try to be clear that but I'm not always, that it's a suggestion, not a mandate.
Right.
And I also have to think about that with my boss, because I know as a CEO, it's very easy for people to follow and just do exactly what he says. But I know him well enough now to know that he may have strong opinions, but he's also looking for the people who report to him to have strong opinions and to be able to come back and say, you know what, that was your suggestion. This is my recommendation. Just because the CEO or the VP of sales or your manager has an idea that something needs to be done a certain way doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way. It doesn't mean to go and disregard everything, but I think it's use the brain, think about it, have the courage also to have the discussion to say, had you considered this?
Well,
I'm always receptive. I shouldn't say I'm always. I try to be very receptive to that.
Finally, episode 469, we close out the week with my conversation with Shawn Finder. He's the CEO of Exchange Leads. We talk about building lists and the importance of data hygiene and data standardization in your list to ensure that you're not wasting valuable selling time. Check it out.
Yeah, one thing we just started working on and we're about to finalize, which we found that even the largest companies in the world don't have is more data standardization. And what I mean by that, Andy, is a lot of clients, even if you go on LinkedIn right now in the advanced search and you type in vice president of sales, you might see vice president sales, sales vice president, VP of sales. So it's the same thing with people's data. In their CRM, they might have, for example, Walmart USA, but they might have it spelled with a capital W, Walmart as one word, Walmart as two words, Walmart Inc., Walmart USA, etc. But in their CRMs, that's actually considered multiple accounts when it's actually one company. It's just Walmart USA. So that was one thing that we found very interesting when looking at Fortune 500 clients' data was data standardization. Nobody is really focusing on it, and it can actually improve a lot of people's CRMs and the database that they're using.
So that's it, friends. Another excellent week of Accelerate, the world's best sales podcast. Please take 30 seconds right now, go to iTunes, subscribe, leave a review. I personally want to know what I can do to make this an even more valuable resource for you. For our regular listeners, I'll see you bright and early Monday morning. For everyone else, we'll see you again back here next week. Until then, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.